I never thought that a simple afternoon could turn into something so strange, so unsettling, that it would stay with me for the rest of my life. My name is Alara, and I'm a 72-year-old woman who lives alone in a small, cozy house on the edge of town. My days are usually quiet, filled with knitting, reading, and the occasional visit from my grandson, Kale. Kale is a sweet boy, always full of energy and laughter. He's 16 now, and though he doesn't visit as often as he used to, I cherish every moment he spends with me. One particular afternoon, I was sitting in my favorite armchair by the window, sipping tea and watching the rain drizzle outside. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. I was alone, as I often was, and I didn't mind it. Solitude had become a companion of mine over the years. But then, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was a little surprised. I set my teacup down and shuffled to the door, peering through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a young man I didn't recognize. He looked to be about Kale's age, with messy brown hair and a friendly smile. He was holding a small box in his hands. I opened the door, and the young man greeted me warmly. "Hi, Mrs. Ilara, I'm Zephyr, Kale's friend. He told me so much about you." I smiled, though I was still a bit confused. "Oh, hello, Zephyr. Kale didn't mention you were coming over." Zephyr chuckled, a little nervously, I thought. "Yeah, it was kind of a last-minute thing. Kale had to run some errands, but he asked me to bring this over for you." He held out the box, and I took it, curious. "What is it?" I asked, lifting the lid slightly. "It's a surprise," Zephyr said with a grin. "But you'll have to come inside to see it." I hesitated for a moment. Something about Zephyr's demeanor felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. He seemed polite enough, and if he was Kale's friend, I didn't want to be rude. So, I stepped aside and let him in. "Would you like some tea?" I offered as I led him to the living room. "No, thank you," Zephyr said, still holding that same smile. "Actually, I was hoping we could go to your bedroom." I stopped in my tracks, turning to look at him. "My bedroom? Why on earth would we go there?" Zephyr's smile didn't waver. "It's part of the surprise. Kale said you'd understand." I frowned, feeling a knot of unease tighten in my stomach. Kale didn't mention anything about a surprise in my bedroom. "What's really going on, Zephyr?" For a moment, Zephyr's smile faltered, and in that brief flicker of uncertainty, I saw something in his eyes that sent a cold shiver down my spine. It was like catching a glimpse of a shadow moving in the corner of a dimly lit room, something fleeting, but enough to make my skin crawl. His eyes, usually warm and inviting, seemed to darken, as if a storm had passed behind them. But just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. His smile returned, softer now, almost apologetic, and his expression shifted back to the friendly, unassuming young man I thought I knew. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Ilara," he said, his voice gentle, almost soothing. "I didn't mean to upset you. It's just, Kale wanted me to give you something special, and he said it had to be in your bedroom. He thought it would be more meaningful there." His words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate, but they didn't sit right with me. My heart began to pound, a steady drumbeat of unease that echoed in my chest. Something about this situation felt off, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Kale had never been one for grand gestures or surprises, especially not ones that involved sending his friends to my bedroom. It didn't make sense. And yet, Zephyr stood there, his face open and earnest, as if he truly believed what he was saying. I wasn't convinced. Not even close. My instincts, honed over decades of life's trials, were screaming at me to be cautious, to tread carefully. But before I could gather my thoughts, before I could voice my doubts or demand an explanation, Zephyr took a step closer. The space between us shrank, and the air seemed to grow heavier, charged with an unspoken tension. His voice dropped to a whisper, low and intimate, as if we were sharing a secret too precious to be spoken aloud. "Please, Mrs. Ilara," he murmured, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made it hard to look away. "Just trust me." Those 3 words, just trust me should have been comforting. But they weren't. They felt like a trap, a carefully laid snare designed to pull me in deeper. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all, but the pieces refused to come together. All I knew was that I was standing in my own home, with a young man I barely knew, and the walls that had always felt so safe now seemed to close in around me. I wanted to step back, to put distance between us, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. My mouth went dry, and my hands trembled slightly at my sides. I wanted to believe him, to believe that this was all just a misunderstanding, a harmless surprise orchestrated by my grandson. But the voice in the back of my mind, the one that had kept me safe for so many years, was shouting louder than ever. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at the edges of my thoughts, I found myself nodding. Slowly, reluctantly, I agreed. Not because I trusted him, but because I didn't know what else to do. In that moment, I felt like a leaf caught in a current, swept along by forces I couldn't control. "All right," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But just for a moment." Zephyr's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was something in that smile, something sharp and calculating, that made my stomach twist. But I pushed the feeling aside, telling myself I was overreacting, that I was letting my imagination run wild. After all, he was just a boy. Cale's friend. What harm could he possibly do? As I turned and led him down the hallway toward my bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something far bigger, far darker, than I could have ever imagined. And with every step, the voice in my mind grew louder, more insistent. Be careful, Ilara. Be very, very careful. Zephyr closed the door behind us, and I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's this all about, Zephyr? What's in the box?" Instead of answering, Zephyr set the box down on the bed and took a step closer to me. His expression had changed, the friendly smile replaced by something darker, more intense. I took a step back, but he followed, closing the distance between us. "Mrs. Ilara," he said, his voice low and steady. "There's something I need to tell you." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What is it?" Zephyr's eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I couldn't look away. "Cale didn't send me here. I came on my own." My breath caught in my throat. "Why? What do you want?" Zephyr didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He handed it to me, and with trembling hands, I unfolded it. The words written there sent a shock through my entire body. "I know what you did." I stared at the note, my mind racing. What did he mean? What did he think I had done? I looked up at Zephyr, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't understand." Zephyr's expression was unreadable. "You will," he said. "But first, you need to listen." And then, he began to tell me a story that would change everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, and the secrets I had buried so long ago. Zephyr's voice was calm, almost soothing, as he began to speak. But the words he said were anything but comforting. "Do you remember a man named Thorn?" he asked, his eyes never leaving mine. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Thorn. It had been decades since I had heard that name, and yet, it still had the power to send a shiver down my spine. I nodded slowly, my throat too tight to speak. "Thorn was my grandfather," Zephyr continued. "And you were the one who ruined his life." I shook my head, my mind reeling. "No, that's not true. I didn't." But Zephyr cut me off, his voice sharp. "Don't lie to me, Mrs. Ilara. I know the truth. I've known it for years." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Zephyr, please. Whatever you think you know, it's not what happened." Zephyr's expression softened, but only slightly. "Then tell me your side of the story." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The memories were flooding back now, memories I had tried so hard to forget. Thorn and we were friends once. Good friends. But they got complicated. Complicated how? Zephyr pressed. I hesitated, the words sticking in my throat. But I knew I couldn't keep it buried any longer. Thorn, he was in love with me. But I didn't feel the same way. I tried to let him down gently, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He became obsessed. Zephyr's eyes narrowed. And then what happened? I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. One night, he came to my house. He was drunk, and he tried to force himself on me. I fought him off, but he was stronger. I managed to grab a vase and hit him. He fell, and he didn't get back up. The room was silent for a long moment, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Zephyr spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You ended him. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. But I was so scared, so ashamed. I didn't know what to do. So I buried him. In the woods behind my house. Zephyr's expression was unreadable as he processed my words. And you never told anyone? No, I whispered. I couldn't. I was afraid of what would happen. So I kept it a secret, all these years. Zephyr was silent for a long time, his eyes searching mine. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft but firm. Mrs. Ilara, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to punish you. I needed to know the truth. I looked at him, confused. Then why come here? Why now? Zephyr sighed, running a hand through his hair. Because I've been carrying this burden too. My family, we've always wondered what happened to Thorn. He just disappeared one day, and no one ever knew why. It's haunted us for years. And then, when I met Kale, and he told me about you, I started to put the pieces together. I felt a pang of guilt, sharp and painful. I'm so sorry, Zephyr. I never meant to hurt anyone. I was scared. Zephyr nodded, his expression softening. I know. And I'm not here to judge you. I needed to hear it from you. To understand. I wiped the tears from my eyes, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in decades, I had told someone the truth. And somehow, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Thank you, I said softly, for listening. Zephyr gave me a small smile. Thank you for telling me. We stood there in silence for a moment, the tension slowly dissipating. And then, Zephyr reached for the box on the bed and handed it to me. This is for you, he said. It's not much, but I thought you might like it. I took the box, curious, and opened it. Inside was a small, handmade bracelet, woven from colorful threads. It was simple, but beautiful. I made it myself, Zephyr said, a little shyly. I thought, maybe it could be a symbol of forgiveness. For both of us. I felt tears welling up in my eyes again, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. It's beautiful, I said, slipping the bracelet onto my wrist. Thank you, Zephyr. He nodded, his smile widening. You're welcome, Mrs. Ilara. And then, without another word, he turned and left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of the past finally beginning to lift. After Zephyr left, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the bracelet on my wrist. It was a small thing, but it meant so much. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace, as if a long-buried wound had finally begun to heal. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still so many questions, so many things left unsaid. But for now, I was content to simply breathe, to let the weight of the past settle where it belonged. As the rain continued to fall outside, I felt a strange sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to let go of the secrets that had haunted me for so long. Maybe it was time to start anew. And as I sat there, listening to the soft patter of the rain, I realized that sometimes, the hardest part is simply taking the first step. But once you do, the rest will follow. In the weeks that followed, Zephyr and I began to talk more. He would visit me often, and we would sit together, sharing stories and memories. It wasn't always easy, there were still moments of pain, of regret, but slowly, we began to heal. Kale, too, became a part of this new chapter. When I finally told him the truth, he was shocked, of course, but he also understood. He stood by me, offering his support and love, and for that, I was eternally grateful. Life, I've come to realize, is not a straight path but a winding road, filled with twists and turns that we can't always predict. It's a series of moments, some so bright they light up your soul, others so dark they threaten to swallow you whole. There are moments that feel like they'll last forever, and others that slip through your fingers before you can even grasp them. Some moments are gentle, like the soft hum of a lullaby, while others crash into you like a storm, leaving you breathless and shaken. But no matter what, we have to keep moving forward. One step at a time. One breath at a time. Even when the weight of the world feels too heavy to carry, we find a way to keep going. Because that's what life is, a relentless, beautiful, and sometimes brutal journey that demands our courage, even when we feel we have none left to give. And as I sit here now, in the quiet stillness of my home, looking out at the world with fresh eyes, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time: hope. The kind of hope that doesn't shout but whispers, soft and steady, like the rustle of leaves in the wind. The past, with all its shadows and secrets, will always be a part of me. It's etched into my bones, woven into the fabric of who I am. But I've come to understand that it doesn't define me. Not anymore. The mistakes I've made, the pain I've carried, the choices I've regretted, they don't hold the power they once did. They are chapters in my story, but they are not the whole book. And the beauty of life is that we get to keep writing, keep turning the page, even when the ink feels dry and the words don't come easily. I think about Zephyr and the unexpected gift he brought into my life, not just the bracelet on my wrist, but the chance to face the past and finally let it go. I think about Kale, my sweet grandson, who reminds me every day that love is stronger than fear. And I think about myself, not as the woman I was, but as the woman I am becoming. Stronger, braver, freer. Because I am Alara. I am not just the sum of my mistakes or the keeper of my secrets. I am the quiet strength that carried me through the darkest nights. I am the laughter that still finds its way to my lips, even after all these years. I am the love I've given and the love I've received. I am the stories I've lived and the ones I have yet to write. And as I sit here, the sunlight streaming through the window, warming my face, I feel a sense of peace I haven't known in decades. The future is uncertain, as it always is. There will be more storms, more moments that test me, more challenges I can't yet imagine. But I am ready. Ready to face them. Ready to embrace whatever comes next. Because life, with all its chaos and beauty, is still mine to live. And I intend to live it fully, with an open heart and a spirit unburdened by the weight of yesterday. Because I am Alara. And this is my story. And it's far from over.